You're listening to Level Up with Melissa Zeloof from IronSource.
So welcome back, everyone. I'm Melissa Zeloof, and you're listening to Level Up, the podcast for people who love making, growing, and of course, playing games. Joining me on today's Level Up episode is Sally Liu, who's Director of Customer Success at Unity. We'll be talking about the gaming industry, its relationship to Gametech, and Unity's role in all of this, which is obviously going to be super exciting. I'm looking forward to this a lot. Sally, thank you very much for joining us on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's
Could
really
you,
exciting year for sure, 2020. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, let's hope it's a highlight of 2020, which is not really saying much, yeah. Bar is set really low. Could you maybe start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey in the gaming industry? So sort of like, where were you before you were at Unity?
Yeah.
Because I did actually know you then. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think my journey in the gaming industry pretty much tells you the story of how gaming platform evolved in the last 15 years, right? I started working for a company that back in the day were doing PC games, right? And then so PC games, the time that you have to either insert your CD into your drive or you download EXE files to install the game to your PC. So I actually already doing advertising insertion into those games back in the day. So my gaming experience always surrounding the advertising part of it, the advertising component to it as well. And then after the PC game industry, I went to Facebook gaming, right? So like I do have the gaming for Facebook. And the example is I joined Zynga at the time that when we do the Farmville on Facebook, and there's a lot of social interactions, there's a lot of advertising involved as well. So I was there doing the monetization for those games. And of course, Zynga evolved also to tap into the mobile, like gaming. And that's kind of my path also from the Facebook, like web gaming to the mobile gaming, and then drive towards that mobile focus that going forward. And then I joined Scopely, Gem City, and those this fun casual game company running monetization and operations and stuff. And then joined Unity today. So I joined Unity about 2 years ago to run the customer success organization.
Mm-hmm. It's like a who's who tour of the top companies in gaming.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what your role at Unity entails today.
Yeah, so I lead one of the customer success organization for Operate Solutions. Operate Solutions, I'm not sure if everyone are familiar what we do, is that we offer the customers the ability to grow and engage their end user base, right? As well as run and monetize their content with the goal of optimizing end user acquisition and operational costs while increasing the lifetime value of their end users. So my team's focus are on the client-facing day-to-day operation and provide professional services to our developers' clients.
Amazing. And sort of how was the what has it been like to see Unity sort of pre and post IPO? Is obviously, I mean, 2020 might have been, generally speaking, quite a horrible year, but for you guys, it was also incredibly exciting. What was that experience like?
To us, operationally, we don't change, right? Because we are still facing the same client, we still operate the way we are. Of course, the COVID situation definitely made the market really dynamic. So we're kind of make sure that we embrace that changes and then operate against those things. But in general, we are still the same.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny, you've kind of mentioned COVID in the market, and one of the things I think Unity's IPO and Unity in general really sort of crystallizes or represents is this new emerging category of game tech, which is this phrase we're using a lot, which Newzoo, the research firm, coined with their map, which came out a few months ago. And in many ways, Unity is kind of like the epitome of a game tech company. You guys have got a lot of different technologies which serve sort of various different parts of the ecosystem. How you've mentioned Operate. There's the engine, obviously. There's cloud content delivery. How important do you think a diverse portfolio of offerings is when it comes to being a leader in the gaming industry?
Yeah, first, I think we think the most important thing is to think about the player experience, right? And then to bring the product to market that help our customers, which are mostly game developer, to create and operate the great games for them. You can see in our offerings now how we grown and expanding our offering. Even most recently, we include the support for small indie developers to get access to our tool to help their games to get discovered. I think this goes beyond just a tech ecosystem, really into the heart of what makes a great experience. I think that's why Unity has expanded beyond just gaming into other verticals as well. If you can see that we have entertainment, we have automobile, and all these different verticals. That I mean, for our goal is to our philosophy is to have more creators in this world, right? So I think that's the power that not only to drive the technology for the gaming, but it's overall all this industry surrounding entertainment and also other things.
Mm-hmm. And do you think it's an interesting point you bring up about games versus other verticals? Do you think there's something specific or different about developing tech for game developers? And if yes, why? So does it have to be? I mean, the most kind of simplest or most obvious comparison is kind of game developers to other non-game app developers. Does tech for game developers have to be faster, more sophisticated? Does it have to sort of prioritize user experience or interactivity more? Do you find that's the case?
I think it's all of the above because it's all about creating the most engaging experience possible for the player. No matter what kind of content that you're consuming, it's about the player experience. And especially around games, I think good games get noticed. Great games keep the notice for a long time and
Mm.
continues to evolve it and then to build an engaged fan base, right? I think our goal is to help ensure that creators or developers can create and build and engage and grow and achieve a profitable business model.
Hmm. And you talked about some of the new things that Unity has launched. What tech do you think is actually missing, or perhaps has the greatest room for improvement when it comes to a game developer's toolkit today?
I
Kind of
wouldn't
what's
say
let's
that.
let's call it
Yeah.
what's tomorrow's tool.
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't have a crystal ball, but what I can tell you though is I wouldn't say necessarily anything missing. It's more around like the room for improvement. I think like for example, the better or real time picture of understanding the players. So like there's the understanding in terms of the analytics, right? And also the understanding the player behavior in real time. Those are pretty critical. I think there's definitely a lot of room to improve. And the other side I would suggest is like AI and machine learning components, because most game studios, especially, that they have this perception that it's so expensive to build a data science team to do AI and machine learning. And actually it's a massive misconception because like for example our tool like GameTune that can actually seamless integrate those into the tech stack and instantly bring the real time information, also like segmentation, all the things that to put the player data to work, right? So helping the overall game development process to be more efficient. I think this is like like two things. One is like I say the understanding the real time picture of the data and player experience and the player behavior, and then how do you predict or like catering to like that type of behavior by using AI and machine learning.
Hmm. And where do you think the next stage of gaming's growth is going to come from? Do you think we're going to see? Is it going to be a new genre? Is it going to be new or more developers? Or are we going to see kind of the big guys continue to grow and dominate the market? I mean, we've seen a really rapid growth in the game industry over the last couple of years. Have we peaked? Again, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but in your sort of a very educated and experienced opinion, what are we going to see next?
I think what's most exciting about games is the ability to connect people, right? Like across different geographies, across different gaming platform, and even game types. Um, I think it's not really like a dominant or the big players or the growth of the indie players. It's actually a combination of both, and so like people will continue to do great games. They're gonna make it even more social. For example, we just saw the article from Oxford University, like I think it's 2 3 days ago. It's actually talking about video games is good for the health. I think that people are driving that directions, like social interactions, and then this kind of interactive gaming experience is actually good for the society, I would say. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting to see that dynamic continue, especially with the COVID situation. I think we mentioned about this, that people
Mm-hmm.
become, they're all remote and then continue to interact on a virtual environment. And people that didn't play games now become gamers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
gamers become even smarter to understand to utilize different technology and to play the video game. Like for example, like VR, AR, those type of things, or like different gadgets and stuff. I think it's definitely gonna drive and expand towards that direction.
Mm-hmm. And we talked a little bit about sort of how important it is to have lots of kind of a diverse portfolio of technology or tools for a game developer. And Unity is a great example of that. Normally, the trade-off between kind of one-stop shops and specialty solutions comes down to being able to get much more sort of tailored or bespoke technology from providers who specialize in one specific thing. Do you think that applies in the game industry at all?
I think possibly in some instances, but Unity is really different, right? So first of all, we're engine agnostic, so like which provide the developers the flexibility to develop on the engine they choose. I think is important to us that they remain in control of their IP and experience, which is also why our products are also like interoperable and or giving the developer the ability to truly design the experience they want with the tools they choose. Um, which I like to see everyone using Unity, right? But the reality is that
Mm-hmm.
anyone can enter at any point in our ecosystem to find a solution fit and succeed. You never need to leave the Unity ecosystem to succeed, but although we're careful not to lock you into a one size fits all model.
Mm-hmm. And you, I mean, you mentioned you worked in monetization roles at multiple gaming studios, and now you're actually on the other side of the coin at Unity. What's that shift been like?
It's interesting because people are always ask me this, and then I joke about like I come to the dark side, but it's actually not true, right? Because a lot of misconception about ad networks that most
Mm-hmm.
ad network do not have the publishers first in mind. But I mean, it's not the case, especially with Unity, right? We focus on user first and then developers and help them to build and monetize and optimize their own benefits, and we're helping publishers to make money. I
Mm-hmm.
think in, for me especially, I think it's instead of handling just one studio because like one company they have the very limited portfolio. I now do have like a bird's eye view over the entire industry. So not only just on the monetization, but also there's user acquisition, there's also game technology and game services, which give me a really cohesive view in terms of how the industry operate and also different cross-functional components that work with each other.
So you've mentioned a couple of times this not idea. I mean, it's not an idea; it's happening. Unity having solutions for entertainment and a bunch of other verticals. And I think entertainment and gaming is a really interesting topic to tackle because the lines between. I mean, first of all, maybe it's something we can debate whether there were lines between the two in the first place. But
Mhm.
certainly, the boundaries between traditional entertainment and gaming are increasingly blurring. You have Netflix shows of popular video games. You have virtual music events inside, games like Fortnite. And there are even now sort of startups who are building products to enable this, like Wave, who use broadcasting gaming technology to create sort of motion captured performance of artists, which then they turn into animated characters in virtual world. So it's all sort of quite blurry and mind-boggling. How do you see this trend of kind of traditional entertainment moving into gaming and the other way developing?
I think, yeah, well, you mentioned Netflix, and then we're seeing this already in the way that subscription gaming has taken off, right? If you look at Stadia or even the Apple Arcade, so the things are already happening. And it's a model that will hopefully that the audience will already know this, but it's a model where player consume the game content without ads or an IAP in return of playing with, you have to pay a recurring fee. I think over the next few years, we'll get a better indication, honestly, because like even though we have seen this model scale in music and movie streaming with Spotify and Netflix, but I think the jury is still out for like the gaming side of the model because as you probably already observed, it's taking a lot of efforts for even just Google or Apple really push this type of model, and then the infrastructure to support that will have to be like solid, right? So I think the all these components had to be all come together in order for us to have this type of scale in the future. But definitely, it's definitely started to see that trend happening.
Mm-hmm. And this kind of connects both to this question and to my earlier question about tech for the game industry versus other industries. Because another thing that sort of interesting trend that we're seeing is game kind of technology spilling over into other industries. Again, Unity, a great example, right? A sort of a game engine technology then being used to power 3D for kind of, the automotive industry or medical devices or architecture, whatever it might be. And I know it's obviously a slightly less epic example, no pun intended, but in the past, I've talked on it on various different Level Up episodes about how the sort of the creative or user acquisition or monetization technology or the growth technology built for games is in a sense kind of like normally innovation happens first for games. It's like the bleeding edge of innovation inside the mobile app economy. And then sort of trickles down or out into other verticals. Do you think we're going to see this trend continue? And if so, what sort of elements of game technology do you see spilling over into other industries?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we already seen this with the mixed reality in particular, right? Especially amplified by COVID. People want to go to places and to experience events, but the travel is limited right now. Imagine shopping for your car, actually sitting in the driver's seat and looking around at the dashboard, checking the rear view mirror to see how your friends the road behind you. I think the tech is here today. It's being used by different, like several large companies as well. Especially, I think AR is one, tangible experience, especially like for brands today, right? So like a lot of companies using AR to create their virtual experience, right? So like, like furniture companies or the retail in general, I think retail really adopting the like AR, VR experience that for shopping, for the end user experience. So definitely that we were already seeing it today, and I believe it's gonna continue to expand.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of well, I kind of mentioned this, or I don't know if I've made this point. Let's see if you agree with me. But the shift from, which was a huge one for the game industry, from pay to play to free to play. How do you think game tech fueled that, and in a sense kind of gave birth or enabled maybe the free to play model? And do you think we're going to see an evolution of similar significance in the future? For example, you mentioned this subscription based games.
Yeah, I think we have seen the rising trend of the company tap into game services and technologies, right? Yeah, including Iron Source, for example. And so, like even AppLovin, there's another great example as well. So I think both companies have gone to the direction by creating different studios to helping with the game publishing business, for example. I think for Unity's point of view, our direction was to create and we recently launched this game growth program, which helped the indie developer to learn the experience and gain the skill sets to elevate themselves from indie to potentially mid-scale. So we see the entire industry rallying around the idea of embracing the whole game lifecycle with game like player experience in mind, and that will continue to expand.
Interesting. And this is sort of a very forward-looking question. Looking at, I don't know if you've had a chance to see Newzoo's map of the Gametech ecosystem, but what areas are you most excited about, and why? And where do you think we're going to see the biggest growth come from in the next few years?
I think the most exciting thing is to me really is to seeing how the lines between development and operations and also development and growth that already blurring. Like people come together nowadays that to really create this cohesive or like working really closely with different components for the game industry as a whole. I think while the map does a good job of buckling all these various players out there, I would like to see the version that maybe made with Unity that showcases, there's so many components that can work together. And there's definitely overlap between all those things I talk about, like development, operations, development, and growth that can have a bigger overlap. So it's not just a clear bucket going forward. I feel like there's definitely some kind of like connection between different dots.
And what about sort of AR and VR, which kind of also you've mentioned them and connect to Unity's offering? What role do you think you see them having in the future of gaming, and I guess outside of gaming too?
Yeah, definitely. I think they are incredible mediums, right? So not just for games, but for really building out the like metaverse between the traditional and digital. So they're standalone powerhouse experiences and addictive like is enhancements to bring those experiences to new levels anywhere they're needed. So it's not just about gaming. It's not about not only just about entertainment. It could be applied to many different applications. I think this technology would really help us bring the level of creativity to new heights for our creators.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very positive note to end on. Sally, thank you very much for being on the show today. It's been super interesting. And thank you, as always, to everyone else for listening. Tune in next episode for probably what will be the last of our game tech focused miniseries.